Again, I'd like to echo the appreciation for this report. I appreciate how it's broken down into the different stages of the planning process and the school-by-school breakdown. But I do have to disagree with a couple of my fellow school committee members in that I think that there wasn't and there isn't enough effort to include parents and students. And I'm really hoping that in answering the questions that I'm going to pose now, you might change my opinion. Looking back at the planning process, which seems to be the first cycle process, I'm looking at the October 6th, 2011 meeting with principals and headmasters, the October 11th through 14th meetings, walkthroughs with BPS staff, principals and headmasters, the October 20th meeting with principals and headmasters. And so I have to ask why staff, parents, and students weren't included in the planning process.
Mr. Rojas, what document are you referring
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm referring to the Expanding Access to Excellence report that we were just talking about, the facilities planning process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So as we looked at the planning process, we wanted to engage school communities actively rather than sort of sitting in central office and making grand plans without engaging school communities. The challenge when engaging school communities is to get input in a way that we can get input and feedback from the school communities without creating, I'm trying to figure out the right wording to say this, without creating alarm, widespread concern that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of misinformation that sometimes comes out if you start things early without having a clear vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And so we decided in this case to start with principals and headmasters as representatives of their communities. They are it's also in order to get people together in a small group setting and have a smaller, very in-depth and detailed conversation with people. We wanted to be able to do that in a small setting, which is difficult to do when you have it in a sort of broad community meeting for your initial take. So what we were trying to do is before we came out with a first proposal, we wanted to be able to get input from the schools using the principals and headmasters as a representative of their variety of communities to give us input that would shape what we might come out with a proposal and then get a broader set of input. So it was really our decision in pursuing this process was to try to leverage the principals and headmasters as representatives of their entire school communities, knowing the board, knowing their staff, knowing their students certainly better than probably anyone else as one single representative of the school. Now we know though that you can't just, we can't expect our principals and headmasters to be the sole representative of their school or to solely to be the sole representative of their school in this decision making, which is why as we got enough clarity we wanted to bring it to a proposal, then we brought it out in a very public forum and are now having opportunities to have engagement on a broader level. Before anything is finalized, and as you can see, we continue to refine the proposal and refine our clarity around aspects of it as we go and get input.
Oh, and thank you for that. And I understand where you're coming from. I do think, though, that there are benefits to including parents and students in the initial processes, because when you come up with a plan with headmasters and principals and the department, and then you spring this proposal onto people, yeah, you're including them in the conversation, but the way that it's presented to the public, all of a sudden 7 schools are moving, that's not the correct number, but it also creates unintended problems, and the community feels like it comes out of nowhere, that they were completely unaware of it, and so I would urge the committee and the BPS system to involve parents and students and staff in the initial planning process. My second question, which is completely related to that, is in looking through the schools and the list of meetings, I see that staff and parents were involved in several meetings, most of which have already happened. And I'm wondering if aside from the community engagement meetings, which are happening around this weekend or next week, are there any other meetings being planned at these schools to engage further the staff, parents, and students?
So our immediate focus after this round had been to make sure that we also got laid out the community-based meetings. So those are listed here. We are, though, as we have discussed with specific school communities, as they have requested additional meetings, or as it seems to make sense to have them again, we are working to schedule additional dates. So, for example, when we spoke with the Fenway community on Saturday, we said that we were going to have another opportunity to come back together. In addition to meeting with their board on Monday night, and just to note, the Fenway board and the board subcommittee does include both staff, students, and parents. And so there were no parents there were no students at the meeting on Monday night, but there were parents and staff as well as part of that. So again, I'm trying to be a representative body of the group. So we don't have additional dates laid out beyond what's on here, but we are in the process of figuring out what are those next meetings. And as soon as we have them, we're updating the community and working with the school leaders to schedule those.
Great. And quickly, how are you reaching out to parents and students? I would just like to know.
In terms of reaching out to parents and students
about the meetings, yeah.
So we have a couple different strategies around this. One, in part of this is working through the headmasters and the school leaders to identify the best way to spread the word. So we work with the headmasters to schedule the additional meeting, find a time that works, and then to work with them to spread the word among the community. There are a variety of other ways that we can reach out to folks, whether through letters or the automatic calls. In some ways, we're working with the school leaders to define this. Our Office of Community Engagement may have more specifics around this, as I'm not the person who coordinates the outreach efforts, so I may not be the best person to talk to our details around it.
Great.
But I can find out, and we can, I think we're always open for new ways to reach out to families and communities and parents, and to find new and better and effective ways to reach them.
Great, thank you for that. And I would encourage the community to come out and make a public comment on how outreach went in your school, whether you heard about these meetings or not. That's important, I think. I see that the Boston Arts Academy, the Kennedy Health Careers, and the ACC, I don't see meetings listed that involved parents and students, and I'm wondering why that is. So I'm looking at page 2 of 3 of the same document. And there are three schools with lists that don't include meetings with staff and parents. And I'm wondering why that is.
And I believe it's BAA, ACC,
and I believe Kennedy Health Careers.
Now, Kennedy, I believe, may be an omission. They had a meeting last night at Northeastern, and so if it's not listed on here, it's because we accidentally omitted it from our list. So they had a meeting last night on the Northeastern campus that engaged all of their community members. So that's an omission.
Well, I think what would be helpful, given, I want to be respectful of people's time here, and I hear your concern, Mr. Rojas, and I want to be respectful of that. And so I think the main concern you have is to make sure that every school who's impacted in any way, that families, that parents, that students have a chance to give input. And we can certainly work on making sure that is true for the ones like ACC that may not be listed on this sheet. I think that because I want to help and be respectful of the fact that it is a school night, there are a lot of people here to speak. I do want us to kind of move on to the questions so that if we can get the essence of what is expected, we can work on getting it back to you and making sure by Friday we have a list of all those dates worked out. And I appreciate the consideration, because it is true that all of those folks should be involved. Thank you.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Ms. Tamer, is there